What is going on off map in the Game of Thrones? Let's just get this theory thing out of the way, right? If you put out 1,000 theories over the last couple years about Game of Thrones, right? Most likely you weren't right about any of them, right? So I don't understand how these people take the same people serious that put out 5,000 theories over the last 5 years, and none of them were correct. Maybe 10% of one theory was correct, and they bragged about Daenerys going mad. But just think about it. You were actually 99% wrong, more than 99.8% wrong on your theories. So I just don't understand how people are taking these theorizers serious anymore. I wanted to make this video today because I've seen a couple theories floating out there that the Long Night is actually one story, that it's spread around Westeros and Essos, but it's the same story. It's just got changed by different cultures. Now, I will hold out the possibility that the Long Night is one story, that it is all connected in some sense, but I'm going to explain my reasons why I counter that argument, and I'll explain my reasons why it is possible that it is the same story. I like to say sorry to the flat earthers, but the world map in Game of Thrones is actually round. That's been a fact because George said it himself. He said the world of Game of Thrones, like the planet size, might actually just be a little bit bigger than the planet of the Earth, right? So if we're looking in terms of the map that way, right? When we look at the Earth map, we see Russia is all the way to the east and Alaska is all the way to the west. But when you look at it as a globe standpoint, right, you'll see Alaska and Russia is actually right next to each other. And we're looking at all of this from a logical standpoint, not from a Bran looks like the Night King, so he's the Night King. That's guesswork. We're looking at facts and we're looking at logic, right? So when the Long Night happens, right, you have an evil coming down from the far north in Westeros and an evil coming across from the far east in Essos. Two spots where you can't see on the map. So is it possible that Essos and Westeros, the north of Westeros and the far east of Essos, is actually connected through a land bridge that we're not seeing on the map? So for this all to be a one-story myth, right, the people of Westeros would have had to been pushed back all the way to the great Empire of Dawn. That's how far they would have had to been pushed back for everybody to know the story of the Long Night, which is impossible because the Children of the Forest destroyed the land bridge to return back to Essos. So we know the people of Westeros didn't get pushed into Essos through the Long Night, right? They stopped them in Westeros. So if we believe the Long Night, Night's King, is the same one attacking Essos at the same time, he would have had to get there some other way, not through Westeros, the south of Westeros, because the land bridge isn't there anymore. You might say, Wizard, well, the Night's King, the Long Night's King, froze the Rhine River to cross to Essos in that hero story, where they had to sing to unfreeze the river and all is good. Same kind of Azor Ahai story, same kind of Stark story, right? But the problem I have with that theory is that means the great empire of the Dawn would have got attacked from the west. So why would they have built the 5 forts in the far east to keep out anything from the Grey Waste if the attack was coming from the west? So I don't believe that's how the Night King was trying to travel to the great empire of the Dawn. But on the other hand, for evidence that Westeros and Essos are actually next to each other on the outside of the map is the Seastone Chair, right? The Seastone Chair was found on the shores of the Iron Island, where they created their religion around, right? So it would make sense that the chair floated from Essos, maybe Ashai, floated from there to the Iron Islands on the other side of the map we cannot see. Some more evidence that this is the same story across both continents is the phrases that they use. Like the long night phrase in Westeros was battle for the dawn, right? And this in Essos, at the same time, the greatest empire in the world is the Empire of the Dawn. So battle for the dawn kind of seems like they were battling for the Empire of the Dawn. Also the phrase, all men must die. But all roads lead back to the Bloodstone Emperor. The Bloodstone Emperor and the Empire of the Dawn, this is where it all starts. This is where the story starts. This is where everything starts. And people are still worrying about Westeros. This is where the action is going to go down, right? And in this Bloodstone Emperor story, we find out that the Long Night wasn't stopped by him, right? He's the one that created the Long Night. Well, I'm guessing it's going to be his sister or a Mulan character, because at this time, in this empire, the men would wear monkey hats, right? So the person to take down the Long Night is a female wearing a monkey hat. So that means it was a female pretending to be a male. Same old story, you know? So, for you to believe that this is all a metaphor, right? Which I don't believe, because they built the 5 forts on the further side of Essos. You don't build physical monuments like the wall in Westeros if you aren't trying to keep something out, right? If this was just a metaphor, they wouldn't have built the wall. We know that the Night King's real, and they wouldn't have built the 5 forts, because whatever evil that is in the Grey Waste, or that lies, past the further east, that evil is real. So this is where it gets tricky, right? So if you believe that the Night King or the Night's King or the Children of the Forest created these ice beings, right? How did they get to Essos at the same time? Remember, the Children of the Forest destroyed the land bridge, right? So if this is the same evil that's attacking Westeros through the north, and it's attacking Essos through the east, how did the Night's King get over to Essos? But these are the keywords, right? You got dragons, you got Bloodstone Emperor, you got the Black Stone, meteorite, whatever you want to call it, and then you have these mysterious magical beings that made even more mysterious magical beings. And when the Bloodstone Emperor makes his blood sacrifice, all Essos goes to shit. All Westeros goes to shit. So is that story connected through the Black Stone, through the Bloodstone Emperor, through the Children of the Forest, through the Blood Moon? Are all these things connected? Like, we cannot look at just symbolism and stories about the past that George borrowed from. We cannot look at that and say, this is how the story's going to go, because the Danes had a sun sigil, and the Empire of the Dawn means sun. You know what I mean? Like, that is not the way it's going to go. You can make up 1,000 stories like that from symbolism, but that's pie in the sky. That's theories that aren't going to go true from a writer's perspective. Just remember how George writes, right? So the story of Jon's parents, he left a blank, and he built a story around that. So how do you figure out what George is hiding and what spoilers he's going to make? Is you look at who is not named. Anybody who's stricken from the record, anybody who you cannot name, any mysterious kind of artifact or person who he's not showing, right? He's building the story around those things. So when you talk about the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, why he's not named is because there's going to be a story built around that. So when there's no name, there's a reason for that. When he's not telling you something, there's a reason for that. That doesn't mean you pull out symbolism and say, oh, well, this is the reason because this symbol looks like this symbol. That's not the way it works. So do you believe that the Game of Thrones map is round in a sense, like we're saying, like Alaska is next to Russia, and even though on a flat map you don't see that, that doesn't mean that's not the fact, you know? So do you believe that's true? Do you believe about the sea stone chair? Do you believe that the Bloodstone Emperor is connected to this whole story? Comment down below. Let me know your theory. Let me know what you think.